Welcome back. A couple of weeks ago, I got a hold of one of the new Tesla CCS1 adapters. This guy allows Tesla vehicles that are CCS1 enabled to use CCS1 DC fast charging stations. And I recorded a complete 0 to 100% charging session on an Electrify America 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. The results were so good that I made a full video out of it, and I also compared it to my previous Tesla V2 and V3 Supercharger recordings, which I did about a year earlier. And to my surprise, it actually was quicker charging with the CCS1 adapter than even my V3 Supercharger session. But that doesn't tell the whole story. You see, when I recorded the V3 and V2 Supercharger sessions, it was a year ago. My Tesla Model 3 was brand new. Now, a year later, it has lost some battery capacity, and so the battery isn't quite as big as it used to be. So when you're talking about charging to a certain percentage, well, the percentage is different if the overall battery capacity is different, so it wasn't quite fair. So what I did was I quick went out within about a week of doing the CCS1 adapter video and did a full 0 to 100% Tesla V3 Supercharger recording. That's what we're going to take a look at today. We're going to compare that to the 0 to 100% recording I did with the CCS1 adapter on the 350 kilowatt Electrify America DC fast charger to see if charging on an Electrify America 350 kilowatt DC fast charger with the CCS1 adapter is still faster than charging on a V3 Tesla Supercharger. But first, don't forget, click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming content here on State of Charge. Okay, before we jump into the side-by-side comparison, we're going to go through the charts I always make. We're also going to do a little comparison of the cost to charge on these two networks. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about why I think it was necessary for me to redo this comparison. As I mentioned earlier, when I did my V3 Supercharger recording on my Model 3, it was a full year ago, and my vehicle was only a couple months old. And during the full charge recording, the car showed that it had added 75 kilowatt hour of electricity to the battery. Now, when I did the CCS1 adapter video just a couple of weeks ago, the car showed that it only took in 70 kilowatt hour. So there's a 5 kilowatt hour difference. Evidently, over the course of just this last year, my car lost 5 kilowatt hour of battery capacity in about, I think, 15,000 miles I drove. So that's not great. I hope it's not linear and it continues to lose battery capacity at that rate. I don't think that's the case. I know most EVs seem to lose more battery capacity in the first year or so, and then it levels off, but it's something that we'll be keeping an eye on. So for me to compare the V3 Supercharger recording that took in 75 kilowatt hour to the CCS1 adapter recording that took in 70 kilowatt hour isn't really fair. So I needed to do another V3 Supercharger recording 0 to 100% on the same conditions really quickly, which is what I did about a week after I did my CCS1 adapter. I drained the car back down to 0, drove it actually about 5 miles beyond 0, which is exactly what I did when I did the CCS1 adapter video. And then I plugged into a new Tesla V3 Supercharger station. I did it at night, so everything was cool. There was no worrying about the connector or the cables overheating. And I was at a new location that has 12 superchargers, and nobody else was there. The site was completely empty. I was the only one there, so there's no power limitations. But one of the things I do want to point out is we give Electrify America and a lot of the other networks slack when some of the charging stations at their locations don't work. 4 of the 12 V3 Superchargers at this location were inoperable, and you could tell that because the lights were out on them, and I tested them, they were not working. So Tesla still has the best network of high-speed electric vehicle chargers, but they're not perfect either. And if I'm going to call out Electrify America and other networks for having broken charging stations, we need to also call out Tesla. And in this case, you know, 1/3 of the superchargers at this location were inoperable. So in any event, we're going to jump over and watch the side-by-side comparison of these two charging recordings that were done about a week apart, one on Electrify America Network, one on the Tesla V3 Supercharger. But first, I want to remind everyone this video and my channel, State of Charge here, is sponsored by Qmerit. Qmerit is the largest installer of electric vehicle charging equipment in North America. If you're in the market for an electrician to install your charging equipment, please follow the link in the description of this video and get a no hassle, no strings attached estimate from Qmerit. Now let's check out the side-by-side comparison video of these two charge recordings and see which one is faster. It's a virtual tie for the first 2 minutes of charging, but at the 5-minute point, the V3 has a sizable lead, 20% to 16%, and has delivered 14 kilowatt hours to the battery compared to 11 kilowatt hour for the CCS1 adapter. After 10 minutes of charging, the V3 Supercharger is killing it and has my Model 3 up to 41% state of charge already by adding 28 kilowatt hour. The Electrify America station has the car at 34% state of charge, and the car is showing 24 kilowatt hour added. After 15 minutes, the V3 is ahead 55% to 49 and has the edge in energy added 38 kilowatt hour to 35 kilowatt hour. But the CCS adapter isn't going away. After 20 minutes, the V3 Supercharger is holding a 5% state of charge lead, 57% to 52%, and only a 3 kilowatt hour energy delivered lead, 46 to 43 kilowatt hour. After 30 minutes of charging, the V3 Supercharger has the vehicle at 84% state of charge, and the CCS1 adapter has reached 80%. But the energy delivered gap has closed, and now it's only 2 kilowatt hour difference, 58 to 56. The V3 Supercharger reached 90% state of charge in only 35 minutes, and the CCS1 adapter took 3.5 minutes longer. It's clear that the V3 Supercharger is the winner here, but we've observed less than 4 minutes difference charging my Model 3 from 0% to 90%. To me, that's a huge incentive to get a CCS1 adapter if your Tesla is CCS1 adapter enabled and you frequently need to charge on the road, because honestly, there's not much of a difference in charge time. You're talking 4 minutes from 0 to 90%. Now for here on out, it's super slow going, and the V3 Supercharger displays 100% charged after 47 minutes, but keeps on charging slowly to gradually balance out all of the battery cells. The CCS1 adapter needed 8 more minutes to reach 100%, and it also continued to charge for a while before ending the charging session. Now my car displayed 69 kilowatt hour added when the V3 Supercharger session was complete, compared to 70 kilowatt hour added when the CCS1 session ended. Now, hopefully the 1 kilowatt hour difference is just charging efficiency losses, and I didn't lose another kilowatt hour of capacity in just the last week since I recorded the CCS1 adapter video on a 350 kilowatt Electrify America charging station. Okay, so it's a different story with my Tesla Model 3 now that it has lost some of its capacity and has the new Tesla supercharging software. My previous recording last year, the CCS1 adapter beat it by a little bit, but now the tables turned and the V3 Supercharger is definitely faster. But how much faster? Let's put it on paper on our charging power graph. You can see it a little bit more clearly than you can in the side-by-side recording, just where the advantages are. Okay, so let's first look at the charging power graph for the new V3 Supercharger session. The state of charge is on the x-axis, and we have the charging power in kilowatt on the y-axis. It's important to note that this graph doesn't account for time. It's just to show how much power the vehicle is taking in at what percent state of charge. As you can see, the Model 3 hits its maximum charge rate of 250 kilowatt at about 10% state of charge. Very similar to what it did in the first V3 recording I did last year. But this time it only held 250 kilowatt for about a minute and immediately began ramping down the power. But it does so in a nice, long, gradual decrease, not a steep, abrupt drop as we saw in last year's V3 recording. This is a much better charging curve. So let's take a look now at how this compares to the other 0 to 100% recordings I've done with my 2021 Model 3. This new V3 Supercharger session that I just did is displayed in yellow. The V3 Supercharge recording I did last year is in gray. The charging session I did on the Electrify America charging station with the CCS1 adapter is shown in blue. And just for fun, in orange, I added the V2 Supercharger session I did last year. But again, the battery was newer at that point and it didn't have the new software, so it really shouldn't be compared that much, but I just left it up there just to show how it fared last year compared to what the vehicle's doing now. You can see both V3 Supercharger sessions jump up to the 250 kilowatt maximum power that the Model 3 can take in relatively quickly, but the latest recording only holds it for a really short period of time, from about 10% to about 14 or 15%. In the previous charging session, it held the full 250 kilowatt for a little longer. But that's really where the only advantage in that charging session was. As you can see, from about 18% state of charge all the way up to 52% state of charge, the new V3 recording is beating the old one and by a wide margin. It's clear that Tesla has improved the charging curve in an over-the-air update since my previous recording. Now, I know my followers have reported to me that Tesla did this a while ago, but I really haven't needed to use the supercharger network that much. As I charge from home for more than 95% of the time, I actually use the superchargers more doing recordings like this than I do to use them to get to a destination. Home charging is really the most convenient place and the least expensive place to charge your EV, but we're going to get into that a little later in the video. Notice here, all of the charge recordings show basically the same characteristic up to about 5% state of charge, but from that point on, things change. Now let's take a look at the CCS1 adapter charging curve. It starts out the same as the others, and it ramps up to about 172 kilowatt and holds that. It gradually climbs up to a peak of 186 kilowatt as the battery's voltage increases. The vehicle's pulling the same amperage during this whole time here, but as the state of charge increases in electric vehicle batteries, and this is all makes, not just Tesla, the battery voltage gradually increases. And that's why you'll see gradual climbs like this in the charging curves. The vehicle's calling for the same amperage, but since voltage is increasing, so will the charging power. The charging power in kilowatts is basically amps times voltage. It's not until the vehicle is about 30% charged do the charging curves from the CCS1 adapter and the new V3 Supercharger begin to become parallel, and they remain that way until the end of the session. Now, even though they are basically following the same curve, the V3 session is taking in slightly more power the whole time. So it really beat the CCS1 adapter from start to finish. So yeah, the V3 Supercharger combined with Tesla's new software is the clear winner here, especially in the beginning, in this large area here, up to roughly 30% state of charge. That's where the V3 Supercharger really opened up a lead and never looked back. All right, so next up, let's take a look at the time to chart graph. And I've done something special for this video. I added a new chart that shows how long it takes to add back driving range, comparing these two charging sessions based on 50-mile increments. Okay, so first let's take a look at this latest V3 Supercharger recording that I did by itself on the chart. As you can see on the x-axis, it's the charge time, and on the y-axis, we have state of charge. After 10 minutes of charging, we're already at 40% state of charge. That's excellent. After 20 minutes, we're at 66%. After 30 minutes, we're at 85%. And honestly, at that point, it's time to unplug and move on. You're at 85% state of charge from a dead zero in a half an hour. Don't wait any longer because the charging really slows up from here. But after 40 minutes, you're at 95% if you decided to hang around a little bit longer. See, 10 more minutes, you only get 10 more percent state of charge. Now let's take a look at how it compares to the other charging sessions we've done. There's a lot of different data points that you can compare on this chart. And if you want to do that, take a screenshot of it and print it out, and then you can really take a look at whatever you feel like. But what I'm going to do right now is look at how long did it take to get to 80% state of charge and compare all four of these charging sessions. The new V3 Supercharge session that I just did was the clear winner. Did it in 27 minutes, from 0 to 80% in 27 minutes. The CCS1 adapter on the Electrify America network came in second and did it in 30 minutes. my old V3 supercharging recording that had the old software and a bigger battery, so it's kind of not fair, but we put it on here anyway just so you can compare. It took 32 minutes. And the V2 Supercharger recording that I did last year also took 37 minutes to go from 0 to 80%. Okay, so while reaching 80% is a very good goal, and we could talk about percentages and charging curves all day long, what most people really care about is how much driving range can I get from 10 minutes, 20 minutes, so forth and so on. So I made this chart up here, and as you can see, I have both my Tesla V3 Supercharger recording as well as the CCS1 adapter. And I also have two different benchmarks. The EPA range rating for my 2021 Tesla Model 3 is 353 miles. But then I did a 70 mile an hour highway range test, a real world range test. I drove my vehicle at a constant 70 miles an hour, and I ended up with 310 miles of driving range. So we're going to use both of those benchmarks. And if you look all the way to the left, I used 50 mile increments, how long it takes to get to 50 miles of range, 100 miles, 150, and so forth. I'm not going to go over all of these numbers here, but let's just take a quick look at 200 miles of driving range, because it's a good round number. If you're on a long road trip, adding 200 miles is going to add another 3 hours of driving for you. So to add 200 miles of driving range on a Tesla V3 Supercharger, it takes 15 minutes if you're using the EPA's 353 mile range rating as your benchmark. If you're going to use my highway range rating, it takes 3 minutes longer, 18 minutes. Now take a look at the CCS1 adapter. It took 2 more minutes than the V3 Supercharger did to add back 200 miles of driving range according to the EPA range rating. And if you use my highway range rating, it took 3 minutes longer, 18 minutes compared to the 21 minutes that the CCS1 adapter took to add back 200 miles of driving range. And as you can see from this chart, it's never more than 2 or 3 minute difference up until the 300 miles added point. At that point, that's when the Tesla V3 Supercharger opened up a little bit of a lead, because at the higher state of charge, the Supercharger was charging at a higher rate. But even right up to adding 250 miles of driving range, you're looking at between 2 and 3 minutes of wait time difference between a Supercharger and the CCS1 adapter. But you do have to find an Electrify America charging station that's 350 kilowatt. Like you have to find a Tesla V3 Supercharger. Not all Tesla Supercharger stations are version 3. Many of them are V2 and they charge at a lower rate. But if you do find the V3 and you do find a 350 kilowatt Electrify America charging station, here's the difference in charging time for 50 miles up to 300 miles based on the EPA range rating and my highway range rating. Obviously, if you drive faster than 70 miles an hour, that number is going to be a little different. I think most people do drive faster than 70 miles an hour on the highway, but I use that 70 mile an hour benchmark because that's what I compare all our EVs when we do the EV range tests. Okay, so there's the difference there. The CCS1 adapter, again, does really good. We're talking 2 or 3 minute difference pretty much from any starting point to any finishing point, unless you're trying to top off and really go to 100% charged. So as far as I'm concerned, is really negligible. If you're on a road trip and you can find an Electrify America charging station, you have the CCS1 adapter, go for that. You don't have to really hunt out Tesla V3 Superchargers. The difference is going to be a couple of minutes of time. That's it. All right, so as you can see, with the Rematch, the Tesla V3 Supercharger is definitely the winner, but not by much. I'm really impressed with how good the CCS1 adapter works when it's charging on a 350 kilowatt Electrify America DC fast charger. So, as I've said before, if you're somebody that does frequent road trips, or let's say you can't charge at home, so you really rely on public infrastructure, and you have a Tesla that is CCS1 enabled, it's not a bad idea to pick one of these up. They only cost a little more than $300. I'm actually going to put a link to where you can buy this for just over $300 in the description of this video. And talking about money, one of the things I noticed in my first video on this subject is a lot of people ask me in the comment section, how much does it cost to charge your Model 3 on Tesla Superchargers and on Electrify America? So I'm actually going to do a full dedicated video on that coming up next. But just to give you a short answer, it's always less expensive to charge at home. At home, it cost me about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. So you could do the math. You could see in these videos, it takes about 70 kilowatt hours to fully charge the battery. When I'm charging on Electrify America network, I pay 31 cents per kilowatt hour because I'm a Pass Plus member. Being a Pass Plus member, you pay $4 a month, but you get a discounted per kilowatt hour rate. If you're not a Pass Plus member, you pay 43 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you just use your account once a month, it pays to be a Pass Plus member and pay the $4 because you're saving money just by using it once a month. Now, if you only use the Electrify America network a couple times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, it might be less expensive just to pay the regular 43 cents per kilowatt hour rate. Now, when I'm charging on Tesla Superchargers, Tesla recently raised their price pretty dramatically, and now they even have a new pricing method on some of the locations I go to that charge depending on when you go there. So in my area, the superchargers that I would visit, I pay anywhere between 26 cents per kilowatt hour and 52 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on which station and what time of day. But as I said, I'm going to have a full comprehensive video explaining all this coming up in a week or so here on State of Charge. So if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming content we have on State of Charge. And as always, thanks for watching.